My father-in-law falsely accused me of theft. My wife sided with him. Now I'm lost and fighting to save my marriage, protect our daughter, but my wife and I, she's 29, I'm 27, aren't in a good place right now. It's not something I say lightly, and it's certainly not a fun thing to admit. But it's the truth. And I think in order to understand where I'm coming from, context really matters. We've been married for 6 years. We're college sweethearts, and despite everything that's happening now, I've never felt for anyone the way I feel about her. She's my person. Or, at least, she was when things were simpler, before life got messy, before other people started taking up space in our marriage that was never meant for them. We have a daughter together. She's 4 years old. She's the light of my life. And it's for her that I'm pushing so hard to make sense of this mess, because I want to be a better father, and I want her to grow up in a home where love is shown, not just spoken. The constant hurdle between my wife and me has always been her family. That's where most of our conflict starts, and where most of my hurt lives. It's like I've always had to prove that I belong, like I had to validate our relationship over and over again just to be seen as worthy by the people she comes from. And that feeling of being tested or questioned, it wears you down after a while. Her family is extremely old school. They're conservative in their beliefs and values, and they live by a very rigid hierarchy. Her father, my father-in-law, is seen as the captain of the ship. Everyone looks to him for guidance and authority. His word is treated like law in their house. And that might be fine for them, but it's suffocating for someone like me, who didn't grow up in that kind of structure. I tried. I truly did. My relationship with him was never easy, but it wasn't because I didn't put in the effort. It was never a lack of trying on my part. But for as long as I've known him, I don't think he's ever really respected me. At best, he tolerated me once our daughter came along, like she was the only thing that justified my presence in his family. It was as if I became useful, not accepted, because I helped bring his granddaughter into the world. And I know for a fact he never thought I was good enough for his daughter. I wasn't his first choice for her. Hell, I probably wasn't even in his top 5. I didn't come from a good enough background. I didn't grow up in a gated community. I didn't go to a fancy prep school. I was raised by a single mother and my 2 older sisters in a modest neighborhood, and I've always been proud of that. But to him, that made me lesser. He never missed an opportunity to make backhanded remarks about my upbringing. He would say things like, "It's no surprise you don't know how to do X, you weren't raised to be a man." Or, "Maybe if you'd had a father figure, you'd understand how to run a household." It was always wrapped in a joke or a just being honest kind of tone, but the intention was clear. He saw me as soft, weak, incomplete. The worst of it happened last Christmas. We were all at my in-laws' house for the holiday gathering. Everything was tense but civil, until it wasn't. At some point, my father-in-law's iPad went missing. And instead of calmly looking for it or even suspecting a misplacement, he blew a fuse and accused me of stealing it. Me, his son-in-law, the father of his granddaughter, a guest in his home. His reasoning? There was apparently a stretch of time where I was alone in the house. Which wasn't even true. I had been in the kitchen helping my mother-in-law prepare food for everyone while the rest of the family kicked back in the living room. But of course, that didn't matter to him. Facts didn't matter. All that mattered was having someone to blame, and I was the easiest target. I tried to reason with him. I told him where I was, what I was doing. I asked my mother-in-law to confirm it, and she did. But he wouldn't hear it. His mind was made up. And to make it worse, he called the police. Actually called the authorities to report a theft, as if I was some kind of criminal infiltrating his home. When the police arrived, he didn't even try to hide his disdain. He told the officers right in front of me that a real man would own up to it, that I clearly wasn't raised to be one. Another jab at how I was brought up by women. Another attempt to diminish me. It was humiliating. Standing there in front of law enforcement, being accused like that in front of people who are supposed to be family. I spoke up for myself. I stayed calm. I didn't have anything to hide. The officers could see that, and thankfully they were level-headed enough to de-escalate the situation. They stayed around until things calmed down, and people went their separate ways. But the damage was already done. After that, my father-in-law didn't stop. No, he took it to social media. He posted a full-blown smear campaign accusing me of stealing his iPad, saying I was never part of the family, that his daughter deserved better, that I was nothing but a leech. It was vicious. And people believed him because he says things with conviction, and he carries authority in his circles. It impacted my life more than I could have imagined. A job opportunity one was up for fell through because his posts came up during the vetting process. The company was in the middle of rebranding and didn't want to be associated with drama. They told me flat out that my online reputation was a concern. I was crushed. One man's lie cost me a real chance at advancement. And through all of this, my wife, she was stuck. I know she felt torn, but it still hurt that she didn't stand firmer in my defense. She didn't approve of her father's actions, but she didn't confront him directly either. She said she was trying to keep the peace. But to me, it felt like I was out there on my own, fending off attacks while she stood on the sidelines. My wife and I made vows. We promised to put each other first. But somewhere along the way, it started to feel like I was second to her father's approval. And that's not something I can keep living with. Essentially, I was shunned from the family. That's not an exaggeration. After the whole iPad incident and my father-in-law's public accusations, I was cut off. There were a few family members, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, who didn't fully agree with how I was being treated, but they didn't speak up either. No one wanted to cross him. He ruled with such control that even silent disapproval was risky. So, they kept quiet. They stepped back. And I was left standing alone. I was told I wasn't welcome on my in-laws' property until I confessed and apologized. Apologized for something I didn't do. Confessed to a theft I never committed. And while they didn't come out and say beg, it was made very clear that's exactly what they wanted. It wasn't about an apology. It was about humiliation. It was about me getting on my knees and groveling. I'm not a prideful person by nature, but I'm also not going to throw away my dignity to feed someone's delusions. And the part that hurt the most? My wife stood by and let it happen. She still attended family events without me, and she took our daughter with her. Even on New Year's Eve. That night gutted me. I wanted to spend it as a family, just the three of us. I needed that togetherness. But she chose to appease her dad and keep tradition. I remember sitting alone in our living room as the clock struck midnight, wondering how I got here, married, but more alone than I'd ever been. Through everything, my father-in-law's accusations, his smear campaign, the social shunning, my wife didn't once stand beside me. She didn't lend her support, publicly or privately. She told me I was being stubborn, that I should just apologize and make peace. But it wasn't about stubbornness. It was about principle, about truth, about not letting a man like him rewrite reality because it suited his control. She said she was trying to keep the peace, not be right. But sometimes, being right is important, especially when someone's character, career, and role as a father are on the line. There was a moment that still haunts me. My father-in-law badmouthed me in front of our daughter. I wasn't there, but my daughter repeated something he said. When I brought it up with my wife, she claimed she hadn't heard him. But deep down, I knew. Even if she had, I'm not sure she would have said anything. And that's what broke me more than anything. Our daughter was my lifeline through all of this. The reason I didn't fall into something darker. After that incident, I put my foot down. I told my wife that our daughter would not be attending family gatherings anymore, not as long as her grandfather continued to badmouth me and paint me as some kind of villain. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was protecting my child. My wife accused me of escalating the situation, of using our daughter as leverage. But it wasn't about retaliation. It was about boundaries. I wasn't going to let that man shape how my daughter saw her father. I could see it happening already, subtle things in her speech, her hesitancy, when I'd ask about those visits. I knew what my father-in-law was doing. I wasn't going to let it continue. And I never asked my wife to cut her father off. I knew how important family was to her. I never wanted her to choose between us. But we're married. We took vows. We have a child. I just wanted her to be there for me, to be my partner, my teammate, my best friend. Instead, she abandoned me when I needed her most. Ironically, I received more support from her mother and sister than I ever did from her. Things between us got worse. We fought. A lot. Arguments would start from nothing and explode into everything. I held in so much just to keep the peace, and when I couldn't hold it anymore, it all came out, raw and angry. She'd shut down or retreat or repeat the same line. I've dealt with my dad my whole life. Sometimes, it's just easier to give in.
But what about me?
What about us? Then, about a month ago, the truth finally surfaced. My sister-in-law found the iPad, tucked away in her son's room. He's 9 years old. He'd taken it during the Christmas gathering and was too scared to come forward after witnessing the nuclear-level reaction my father-in-law had to its disappearance. He genuinely thought he'd be disowned or punished severely if he admitted it was him. My name was cleared. Quietly. My father-in-law didn't apologize. Not privately. Not publicly. Not even a hint of regret or acknowledgement. He just acted like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't been accused, humiliated, smeared, and cut off. Like he hadn't called the police on me or blasted my name all over social media. Everyone else followed his lead, pretending it was just a misunderstanding, that it didn't require acknowledgement. My mother-in-law was the one who told me I was welcome back at their home. Others started inviting me to family functions again. It was all so casual, like they expected I'd be grateful just to be included again. I declined. For myself. For my daughter. This isn't about holding grudges. This isn't about punishment. It's about self-respect and emotional safety. I saw my father-in-law for who he really is: vindictive, controlling, unaccountable. And I saw how quickly people around him will excuse his behavior to stay in his good graces. I won't be a part of that. And I won't let my daughter be, either. Not without my supervision. The situation is still a sore spot in my marriage, something we step around but never really face. My wife refuses to talk about it. Every time I try to bring it up, to explain how it still weighs on me, she accuses me of throwing the past in her face. I'm not trying to rehash old fights. I'm not trying to punish her. I'm just trying to be honest about what still hurts, what still lingers, what I'm still carrying. She says I'm not working to keep the peace. That's the phrase she always falls back on. You're not trying to keep the peace. And I get it to an extent. Peace is important. But I keep thinking, what exactly does peace mean to her? Because to me, peace doesn't mean silence. It doesn't mean burying pain to keep someone else comfortable. And if I'm honest, I've already been keeping the peace. I didn't retaliate when her father falsely accused me of stealing. I didn't lash out when he dragged my name through the mud online. I didn't explode when he badmouthed me around our daughter. I've swallowed a lot. I've stayed quiet. I've set boundaries instead of burning bridges. That is keeping the peace. I'm not proud of airing this all online. I debated for days whether posting about it was the right thing to do. I knew my wife wouldn't approve. I knew it could make things worse. But I needed to talk to someone, even if it was just strangers on a screen. And I needed to be honest with myself. I felt so isolated, so confused, like I'm walking on eggshells in my own marriage. We've never been this disconnected. And I don't want to lose her. I love her.
Deeply.
I wouldn't still be here if I didn't. I want to work on our marriage. I want to be a good partner and a good father. I want our daughter to grow up seeing what love looks like, not just in words, but in action. But I also know this can't continue the way it's going. I don't regret standing my ground with my father-in-law. I don't regret setting boundaries to protect myself and our daughter. But I am starting to question if holding that line is costing me more than I thought. Am I making things worse? Am I too rigid? Too guarded? Or am I the only one even trying to protect what matters? After getting all of this off my chest, I felt more certain about what I needed to do next. I told my wife about the original post. I showed her. She read it along with some of the comments. She wasn't thrilled. That didn't surprise me. But to her credit, she didn't shut down the way she usually does. She actually listened. She let me talk. And I saw something I haven't seen in a long time. She was trying to hear me. I didn't issue an ultimatum. That's not what I was going for. I wasn't trying to corner her or force her to choose between me and her father. But I had to be real with her. Honest. I told her that something needed to change because our marriage couldn't survive like this. I told her that I felt alone. That I'd felt abandoned. That I was carrying the weight of everything while trying not to drown. And no one should feel that way in a marriage. I laid it out clearly. The options were, we go to couples therapy or we separate. Not as punishment. Not as a threat. But as reality. Because I can't keep pretending things are okay. I can't keep brushing it under the rug just to make it to the next holiday, the next family event, the next sleepless night. Our daughter deserves better than this cold silence between her parents. And frankly, so do we. She was quiet for a long time after I said it. I could tell it landed differently this time. Maybe it was the post, maybe it was the timing, maybe it was just finally being faced with the reality that I wasn't going to keep waiting forever. I don't know. But something shifted. She said she needed time to think. She didn't take to the idea of separation well. In fact, repulsed might be the best word for it. When I said the word out loud, not as a threat, not to be cruel, but because it was the honest state of things, I saw her flinch. It was like the wind got knocked out of her. She sat there for a moment, just staring at me, like she couldn't believe we'd reached this point. She said she knew we weren't in a good place. That wasn't new to her, but she hadn't realized how far gone I felt. She said she thought we were just in a rough patch, that things would eventually settle. She kept bringing up our vows, how our bond was supposed to be stronger than outside forces. My dad shouldn't take away from us, she said. He doesn't get to have that power. And I agreed. He shouldn't. But it wasn't just about her dad. That was the painful part to say. It was about us. About how she responded. About the silence. The neutrality. The absence. And when I tried to explain that, I felt like I was peeling off layers I'd been hiding under for too long. I told her I wasn't suggesting separation on a whim. I wasn't throwing in the towel. Our vows do mean something to me, maybe more than she realized, but those vows aren't one-sided. Whether she wants to admit it or not, she broke those vows long before I ever uttered the word separation.
She checked out.
She chose appeasement over advocacy. It wasn't keeping the peace. It was me, drowning, while she sat on her father's boat and never once tossed me a line. That's what it felt like. I told her our problems are bigger than just her father. He might have lit the match, but we're the ones watching everything smolder. She was quiet for a while after that, longer than usual. And then she said she wanted therapy, that she was willing to go. It wasn't said defensively, or just to pacify me. I didn't get the sense she was telling me what I wanted to hear. I hope she really meant it. We've found a couples therapist and it's officially scheduled. That was a big moment. It felt strangely anticlimactic after everything leading up to it, but at the same time, it felt like a turning point. Something shifted. Not a resolution, but at least a redirection. I want to be hopeful. I really do. But I haven't let myself feel that way in a while. Hope's felt dangerous lately, like it sets you up for a fall. But this time, when I asked her if she actually wanted marriage counseling, not for keeping the peace, not because she was yielding or out of guilt, I asked what she truly wanted. She said it clearly. I want this. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose our family. And I believed her. Some people have asked me why I'd even want to try. Why I'd bother after everything that's happened. And I get that question, I really do. But it's not about staying for our daughter. It's not about fear of change or trying to salvage appearances. I want to make a real attempt. For us. Because I haven't given up on her yet. I haven't given up on what we were and what we could still be. The truth is, I know there's more to my wife than her father's shadow. I didn't fall in love with her because of her family. I fell in love with her. The woman who saw the good in people, even when they didn't share her views. The woman who listened when others talked. The woman who tried to make the world just a little bit better, even in small ways. There was a lightness to her back then. A freedom. And I saw how much more grounded she was when she had space, real space, from her dad. She's the youngest of her siblings, and it's no secret that her parents, especially her dad, hold on to her tightly. Too tightly, maybe. At the time, I didn't fully understand it. When we were in college, she picked a school halfway across the country. She rarely went home for breaks. Back then, I just thought she was independent, maybe even a little rebellious. But now I see it differently. Now I realize she was breathing easier away from their grip. Things only started to shift when her job brought us back closer to home. Suddenly, she was wrapped up in family again, back under the roof of tradition and hierarchy. And that's when everything started to feel different. Smaller. Tighter. The warmth she used to carry got edged out by tension. And when the whole iPad debacle happened and her dad went nuclear on me, that pressure cooker finally exploded. It was our first major test since moving closer to her family. And we failed it. Or maybe, more accurately, she failed me. But the thing is, I don't think she fully understood just how much she did. This therapy, it's not going to be easy. I know that. We've got years of unspoken resentments and pain between us now. But if there's a version of us that can come through this stronger, more honest, more united, then I want to fight for that. Because I still see her in there. Not the daughter trying to keep her father happy. Not the person navigating a web of loyalty and guilt. But her. The woman I married. The mother of our daughter. My partner. And now we're finally taking a step. Not a leap. Not a fix. But a step. I'm still in love with my wife. That hasn't changed. But I'm not speaking from a place of blind love or denial. I'm fully aware of how much damage has been done, how far we've drifted from each other, how much silence has settled in where there used to be understanding. And yet, I still love her. I still want the best for her, whether or not we make it through this together. That's the honest truth. What I'm really hoping, is that therapy helps her find her own voice again. One that isn't filtered through what her father expects or demands. One that isn't swallowed every time she tries to keep the peace by keeping quiet. I hope she sees that setting boundaries doesn't make her a bad daughter or a disrespectful child. It makes her a whole person. A grown woman who deserves to live with peace of mind and a sense of agency. She's not a child anymore, and she shouldn't have to keep shrinking to fit into the mold her father built for her decades ago. I've seen who she is without that pressure. The woman I fell in love with wasn't someone who bowed her head and avoided conflict at any cost. She had her own mind, her own fire, her own values. I remember those early days before marriage, when it was just the two of us figuring each other out, when we were equal partners, no outside judgment hanging over our heads. We were a good team. She made me feel seen. She made me feel chosen. And I've been holding on to that version of us even through the worst of this storm because I believe we're still in here somewhere. I really do. We married young, and we heard every variation of the same warning. It's too soon, you'll grow apart. You're not ready. But I was sure. I wasn't naive. I didn't expect things to be easy, and I certainly didn't think we'd never hit rough patches. But I did expect us to weather them together. That's the part that's been the hardest, realizing that in the most painful chapter of my life, I felt completely alone. Not just unsupported, but actively left to fend for myself. And now I see it wasn't just about her dad. It was about the way she defaulted to his side, to his worldview, even when it meant abandoning mine. When I brought up separation, it wasn't an ultimatum. It wasn't a threat. It was a lifeline to both of us. A moment of truth. Because whatever we've been doing until now, it hasn't been sustainable. I've been burning out trying to hold us together, while also protecting our daughter from the fallout of things she shouldn't be exposed to at all. It's not a healthy dynamic for any of us. And whether she realized it or not, my wife had to hear that we were on the edge of something irreversible. To her credit, she didn't shut me down. That matters. She didn't yell or storm off or tell me I was being dramatic. She sat with it. She heard me. And for the first time in a long time, I think she actually saw what I've been carrying. She chose therapy. Not just for show. Not just to buy time. She said she truly wants to work through this, and that she doesn't want to lose our relationship or our family. And as much as part of me wants to protect myself by staying guarded, the truth is, I needed to hear that. I needed to feel like I wasn't the only one still fighting for us. I don't know what marriage counseling is going to bring. It's new territory for both of us. But I'm committed to being honest. To showing up. To doing the work, even when it's uncomfortable. Because I don't want to just coexist in the same house. I want a marriage where we both feel safe, heard, respected. Where our daughter grows up seeing that love isn't just about weathering the good times, it's about choosing each other again and again, even when it's hard. I've also had to accept that I can't force growth on anyone. I can't make my wife communicate. I can't make her enforce boundaries with her dad. I can't make her protect our family in the way I hoped she would. But I can protect myself. I can protect our daughter. I'm not withholding her out of revenge. I'm not trying to isolate her from her grandfather. But I am drawing a clear line. No unsupervised time with someone who tried to turn her against her own father and treated me like dirt over a lie. That's a line I won't compromise on. The truth is, I don't even want an apology from my father-in-law anymore. Not because I forgive him, but because I know any apology that came now would be hollow. Performative. Too little, too late. He's made it crystal clear what he thinks of me. I'm not family. I was a hurdle.
Fine. Let him think that.
He doesn't get to define who I am to my wife or my child. He doesn't get to poison my space anymore. I'm done giving him that power. I've made peace with some of the hurt. Not all of it, but enough to move forward. To the people who've reached out, who've read along, who've shared their own stories, thank you. Seriously. You made me feel less isolated. I didn't post for attention or sympathy. I just needed to get it out, and what I found was connection. You reminded me that I'm not crazy, not overreacting, not wrong for wanting respect, safety, and loyalty in my own marriage. That means something. To anyone else walking a similar path, feeling alone, unheard, or betrayed by the people who were supposed to stand by you, please hear this. You're not alone either. Your feelings are valid. Your boundaries are valid. And you deserve to be loved out loud, not in silence or in secret or only when it's convenient. I'm still standing. I'm still trying. And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm the only one. We'll see where this path leads.
One step at a time.